Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. You know, history isn't just a boring list of dates. It's actually a fascinating story of pressures building up over time, kind of like a boiling pot. Today, we're breaking down exactly what caused the 7 Years' War in North America. Let's keep it clear and straight to the point.
To give us a clear roadmap today, we're going to look at 5 main ingredients: tensions in North America, the battle for the Ohio Valley, money and mercantilism, First Nations perspectives, and finally, how the fighting actually begins. Let's jump right in.
So what actually causes a war to break out? Well, think of wars as giant arguments that eventually boil over. They almost never just happen overnight. Entire nations disagree, the heat gets turned way up, and boom, the pot bubbles over into actual fighting.
To really understand why this specific pot boiled over, we're going to look at 2 things. First, the slow building pressures. We call those long-term tensions. And second, the immediate sparks, the short-term causes that literally force people to pick up their weapons.
All right, Section 1, Tensions in North America, focusing on the 3 main groups involved.
Now, take a really close look at this early political cartoon from 1754. It's a snake, right? But it's chopped up into little pieces. What do you think Benjamin Franklin meant by drawing this? If you look closely, each piece has initials representing the different British colonies.
The message here was crystal clear. The British colonies were totally divided. Operating as chopped-up pieces made them incredibly weak. To successfully claim land and resources, Franklin was saying they absolutely had to join together, or they wouldn't survive the growing pressures around them.
Moving on to Section 2, the battle for the Ohio Valley, which was all about the ultimate prize of land.
So the British and the French were in direct competition for this specific area, the Ohio Valley. The British planned to move in and settle there, but the French? No way. They absolutely refused to let that happen. In response, they attacked the colonists, even setting fire to homes, and built heavy military forts to block the British advance. This land was just way too valuable to share.
Next up is Section 3, Money and Mercantilism, focusing on the prize of wealth. Now you might be wondering, why did these countries want colonies so badly in the first place? It all comes down to a system called mercantilism. Basically, countries needed new markets to sell their goods, and they desperately wanted to extract valuable resources like furs, timber, and fish. More colonies meant more things to sell, which made the home country richer and way more powerful. It was literally a race for riches.
Let's pivot to Section 4, First Nations perspectives. This is all about being caught right in the middle.
Check out this quote from a British colonist back in 1754. He said, "The continent is not wide enough for us both." It brilliantly and kind of shockingly illustrates their totally uncompromising stance. They were entirely unwilling to share this space.
Now compare that to this really alarming perspective from the Delaware chiefs. It shows exactly how threatened the First Nations were by both of these European powers. They watched the French and the British fighting, and they realized that no matter who won, the First Nations were in terrible danger of losing absolutely everything.
The injustice felt here is just devastating. The First Nations were being completely dragged into a war over their own homeland. Their question was so simple yet so powerful. If this is an argument between European kings, why are you coming here? Why is our home being turned into a battlefield? All right, final section, number 5. The fighting begins. The pot finally boils over. Take a look at this 1754 sketch of Fort Duquesne. The French built this in a super strategic location, right where the rivers meet. That gave them massive control over movement and trade in the area. Well, the British didn't like that one bit. In response, they sent a young George Washington to drive them out.
This step-by-step chain of cause and effect shows you just how rapidly things escalated. It literally started with just brick and wood to build a fort, then escalated to a land attack led by Washington, and then quickly spiraled completely out of control.
And by out of control, I mean the conflict spilled right out into the ocean. British forces began chasing down and seizing French merchant ships that were carrying troops and supplies. What started as a local, relatively small dispute over a single river valley was now causing massive naval battles. The 7 Years' War had truly, officially begun.
As we wrap up this explainer, we've seen how a fierce desire for land, the strict rules of mercantilism, and a total failure to compromise forced the world into battle. So I want to leave you with this final thought. Think about the boiling pot of history we just explored. Why does some conflicts lead to war while others get resolved? Why was war the only outcome here? And what, if anything, could have been done differently?